Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
Yesterday, I told you a little about a gathering in Belgrade with my friend Gerardo. And that was about 4 years ago. And Gerardo said that he thought it was going to be World War III right then. And he said so with some reason, I think. The Ukraine had just popped off. Other things were happening around the world. I guess it's a little noteworthy that Mr. Trump wasn't even on the horizon. And I said to him at that time that I didn't think that that was the case, that it was World War III. I remember saying that actually I thought it was better and deeper. And he looked at me as if I had to be out of my mind. I said, well, deeper in the sense that I believe that what we're witnessing is a transformative moment. And deeper in the sense that everything that you and I and everybody we've grown up with have known is all up for grabs. And the only time in my experience that even remotely approximated it, not the 60s, not Vietnam, not, you can go on from there, but the time right around when I was just barely conscious, 5 or 6, until I was about 10, it was called World War II. And there's neither the time, place, or necessity to review the causes of World War II, but the effects we've been living with for the last 60, 50 years. What happened was that the major structures of the world we took for granted disappeared, and new ones manifest in their place. There was a saying that not only the Brits, but everybody else said, you know, the sun will never set on the British Empire. Well, it did. And the Germans were going to rule for 1,000 years, and they didn't. And the Italians, and the so forth, and the so on. Well, you know, that was about hostility and fascism and all those nasty things. But it was something deeper than that. It was the human spirit in its own way, turning to find where it was going. It was evolution. I hope to say this, evolving one more time. I think we're in such a moment. And actually, for all of the folderol happening at 1700 Pennsylvania Avenue, I don't think the Donald understands he's just a symptom. I mean, all this started way before the Donald even appeared. And it'll be going long after he's gone. Of course, we can all die of symptoms too, but it's worthwhile keeping your eyes on what's the real issue. And I think the real issue is that we live in one of the really, truly exciting moments of human history. And there is, of course, no guarantee that the human experiment is going to succeed in the sense of long term. As a matter of fact, as we look at the other species around us, the evidence is pretty clear that That's just not going to happen. And if not this asteroid, then the next one. But in the interim, who are we? And what are we contributing to the advancement of consciousness? To what it means to be a being, let alone a human being. I'm sure everybody has their own judgment about what's going on and what to do about it, etc. And maybe this is just the product of senility. I mean, after all, I am 82. I tell you, it's different. Doesn't feel different inside, but it looks different when I look at myself on the screen. But one of the things that's different is I can only laugh when somebody says they actually know what's going on. I mean, I'm serious. The astrophysicists tell us that 96% of all that is, we don't have a clue about. It's called dark energy and dark matter, and that means that we're all concerned about 4%, and we don't know much about that. Now, if it's true that we don't actually know what's going on, or even know what the environment in which it's happening exists, how on earth would we know what to do? So that's the second thing I start laughing at. Anybody who comes up and says, I have the plan. I know exactly what we ought to do. Call it liberal, conservative, fascist, I don't know, call it whatever you want to. I have to say, sorry, it just doesn't compute to me. Knowledge requires that you have some grasp of the elements of what you're talking about. And by definition, as near as I can see, we don't. So, is this the moment to go out and eat worms and hang it all up and, I don't know, oxycodone might do, or whatever the latest thing is? I don't think so for a minute. But I think it may be the moment to seriously go back to basics. How many of you have ever heard of a wonderful lady, Temple Grandin? Don't have to raise your hand. Temple is autistic. She also happens to be brilliant. And as a brilliant autistic person who likes animals, she spends a lot of time looking at what's going on. And I can't remember exactly where she grew up, but it was somewhere in the Midwest where they had a lot of cows. And the people there had a problem with their cows. They'd put them in pens and then line them all up through gates and into a dip pit to get rid of whatever ticks and the like. And everything, you know, on paper, it looked perfect. But the only problem was the cows would go into the pit. They'd bunch up and drown, which is not what everybody had in mind. Well, Temple had noted something very strange and different. While everybody was thinking about how to get the cows in the line, Temple was looking at what they actually did. And the big secret is that cows go in circles. Left to their own devices, even if they're all generally heading towards the barn, they go around in circles. So Temple said, supposing we made the cow runs circular. would that make any difference? She did, they did, and it did. Turns out, if you support what is naturally occurring, a little help, of course, it goes a lot better. Now, I have no idea what's going to happen over the next chunk of time. But I think one thing that was going to happen or won't, but in any event, it'll be critical, happening or not, is that we find ourselves engaged in a global conversation. I don't mean sort of whip downtown to the UN. I mean all 8 and whatever it is, 500 million of us on this planet, actively engaged. Everybody's voice is heard and collectively evolving the structures, the ways of being, the passage. And it won't last forever either. And you may sit there and say, how on earth are you going to get 8.5 million people talking to each other? Well, our current methods are just too slow and too sloppy. You know, small group methods was wonderful. It kind of falls apart when you talk about 8.5 billion, speaking different languages. Therapeutic approach certainly had its place. But we don't have enough couches or therapists to begin to facilitate that process. And of course, simply telling people what to do is going to produce precisely the opposite effect. One of the things that I think Barack Obama was profoundly right on and got roundly criticized for was his statement sort of halfway through. He says, you know, when people get uptight, they grab their Bibles and their guns. He was simply saying in rather picturesque language what every psychologist, anybody who's ever been in a tight situation knows. People freeze. They close space. They go the opposite way from the way they need to go. They seize on methods and approaches which actually confound their situation as opposed to opening up to something new. I think it's quite understandable. I think everybody in your room and certainly in myself has been there and done that. But the bottom line is almost inevitably the end. Close space, you close life. So yes, I have a dream. I have a dream that it will be possible to engage in effective conversations. That's not necessarily words. I don't know who figured it out, but somebody said that 95% of all useful conversation or communication happens without words. I don't know how they figured that out, but sounds good to me. So the question, very simply, is how do you engage that? A year or two ago, we invented or noticed a 5th principle. The first 4, I think most of you recognize. Whoever comes to the right people, whatever happens is the only thing that could have. Whenever it starts is the right time, and when it's over, it's over. The 5th one just showed up in the blue. It goes, wherever it happens is the right place. And the reason I never noticed it before was that open space events always happened in a venue. And for whatever reason, we always thought the venue was critical. That made it special. But the person who brought this to my attention just happened to be a part of the demonstration's entire square. And what she described was 1 million people, plus or minus a few thousand, coming together in multiple circles, spinning, settling, conversing, and spinning off to recreate and reform. And if you happen to be part of any of those circles, the people who were part of it were saying, I've never felt so accepted, so present, so listened to, so involved. Just what people say when they come to an open space. Well, about 3 weeks later, I happened to be talking to another colleague who was in the middle of Tiananmen Square. And guess what? She described exactly the same thing. So it occurred to me that we need to understand the opening of space as an ongoing natural phenomenon. That all other things being equal, the people, when they're together because they care about something, Tiananmen Square, Tahrir Square, will join together in a circle, begin to identify what it is they care about, and they'll go to work. Every time, everywhere, all the time. So the principle, wherever it happens, is the right place. Well, those are just observations, and here's the challenge. If any of that's true, it would mean that every day, in virtually any situation, each and every one of us has an opportunity, wherever we happen to be, to open that space. The space we open will be minuscule. But when millions and millions of us do that, just as a matter of practice, that could be obviously at the dinner table, on the subway car, in the office. That could be as practical as getting that conference table out of your boardroom so that people, whether they like it or not, are going to have to sit facing each other. It could be, well, the possibilities are endless. So my hope, my dream, my charge to you, starting today, although you've been doing it all along, think of those ways that you can open the space for millions of people, most of whom you don't know and can't understand, can and will begin to engage each other. There are no guarantees. But one of the things that we've learned, me, and all of you have learned for 33 years doing this stupid thing called open space. Whatever, 500,000 times, 146 countries. It's simply amazing. You can take rank enemies, people who kill each other, and invite them to come together about something they care about, sit in a circle, create a bulletin board indicating what they really want to talk about, and go to work. And it works every single time. That's kind of interesting. All right, my friends, you got a lot of work to do, and you can forget about everything I've said, except whatever it is you push away from me, just understand you're opening some space for yourself. This isn't about me. This isn't about me telling you what to do. It's about me inviting you to create some space that can and will be absolutely terrifying. But it also happens to be, at least speaking just for myself, the place we grow. It's how I grew. I covet the same experience for yourself. Thank you. Have fun.